Hello, welcome to The Rational Life. This is it's for January 29th, 2021, and there's a lot to talk about today. So I'm going to give you a little breakdown in a second here. First, of course, if you want to support the show, I very rarely ever advertise my Patreon page, but in live streams I do. rationalnational.com/join. Also links all below the video, PayPal link, Twitch link, Streamlabs link. You could also join on YouTube, send super chats as well. Many ways to help support the show. It helps me do this work, and a lot of work, a lot of work this week especially. A lot going on. I really did not know much at all about trading until this week, so I learned a lot covering this stuff. And there's another story on that today as well. So let me give you a quick breakdown here of what to expect in today's stream. So I'll be discussing first thing, the potential that maybe the White House put pressure on Robinhood and other apps to stop trades. So that's still a rumor. I don't want to act like this is news, but because we don't know. But I will get into that and some of the evidence around it. Also, New York Times is whining about Joe Biden. You got to wait to see what that's about. Eddie Glaude on MSNBC nailing the fatal flaw in bipartisanship. I'll be discussing that. Fauci breaking his silence on how he felt about Trump's disinfectant idea, using disinfectant for COVID-19 in the body. I'll get to that. And I have a bunch of other stories I didn't really properly prep, but I'll go over some of the stuff. Biden putting an end to private prisons. John Ossoff privately fighting Joe Biden, pushing him further. I'll touch on that. And some other things here. Some new polling out of Canada that I find interesting, so a lot to potentially discuss later. But first up, let's start with some new piece of news out of what's been going on this week. The Robinhood trading app, among others, may have faced pressure from the White House to stop trades to GameStop and other trading that was impacting billionaire hedge funds. Now, I will say this is a rumor. So this is based on a leak from somebody that claims to work for Robinhood. But based on what the White House has said so far about this, they are really not saying anything. So I'm going to get to a couple of videos and some evidence around this. But just before I get into it, Robinhood has since lifted the restrictions on trading, though not all the apps have followed. So there is still apparently some other apps, maybe TD Ameritrade and others, that are still limiting or still have restrictions on these trades. But regardless, there was clear market manipulation by Robinhood and other apps here. I covered this yesterday. They limited the ability to buy into, GameStop and others, but would allow you to close out, clearly having an impact on the market, purposely manipulating the market to help short sellers. So was the White House a part of this? Well, here is where it all starts. So this was posted by Justin Can, but it's a screenshot from Reddit. Person here saying Robinhood insider information. So I'm not going to read through all this, but this person says they work for Robinhood, low level, technical role, and says here that Vladimir, one of the founders of Robinhood, received calls from Sequoia Capital and the White House that pressured into closing trading on GME, being GameStop, and others. And he claims he thinks this likely took place with E-Trade and others as well. So again, take this with a grain of salt, because this is a person on Reddit. We have no idea. I will say, in reaction to this rumor that blew up, Sequoia here came out saying that they did not pressure Robinhood to halt the trading of any stocks. The rumor is completely false. And the White House now. So the White House is a lot less clear. Now, you could chalk this up to Jen Psaki just having no idea, but listen to what they have to say to a number of questions about this.
What is the Biden administration doing to protect the average American investor if there is going to be potentially a major market correction coming?
Well, the SEC put out a statement. I believe it was today, or in the last 24 hours, I should say. We'd refer you to that. We're not going to have additional comment from here.
Nothing beyond just monitoring it. Has he had any conversations with economic officials about what's going on?
We don't. He's briefed by his economic team frequently, but I don't have anything more to read out for you. Go ahead.
Is the SEC, DOJ, or broader administration specifically looking at Robinhood and other platforms' decision to prevent retail investors from purchasing certain stocks like GameStop?
I don't have anything more on this aside from to point you to the SEC statement.
What is the Biden administration doing?
All right, so Jen Psaki here pointing everybody to the SEC statement. Let me show you what that statement actually says. So recount here tweeting out, the SEC says it is actively monitoring the ongoing market volatility. They're not really saying anything. So that's all we really have here. And another further wrinkle in this is that Vlad, the co-founder of Robinhood, tweeted out here, to be clear, this decision to limit the trading was not made on the direction of any market maker we route to or other market participants. So he's limiting here his or what he's saying to simply places like Sequoia, for example, saying, hey, Sequoia had nothing to do with this. But clearly, within the constraints of what he is saying, it's very possible that the White House did try and pressure them to limit these trades, because he's not ruling out here that the White House was involved, or that there was some lawmakers involved in this. So again, we still don't know, still a rumor, but it is out there, and the White House hasn't exactly denied it yet. Also, worth pointing out here, when it comes to Janet Yellen. So Janet Yellen is the Treasury Secretary. She accepted $810,000 in speaking fees from Citadel. Citadel is one of Robinhood's biggest customers. Citadel also has a stake in Melvin Capital. Melvin Capital is one of these hedge fund short sellers. So, with that said, here's a question about Janet Yellen and whether she should recuse herself because she got speaking fees from Citadel.
And I had a follow-up on the markets and everything that's happening with GameStop. You did mention, I believe, yesterday
that the Treasury Secretary is monitoring the situation and she's kind of on top of it. There have been some kind of concerns about her previous engagements with Citadel and speaking fees that she has received from Citadel. Are there any plans to have her recuse herself from advising the president on GameStop and the whole Robinhood situation?
Well, just to be clear, what I said was that we have the Treasury Secretary is now confirmed. Obviously, we have a broad economic team. The SEC put out a statement yesterday that I referred to, but I don't think I have anything more for you on it, other than to say, separate from the GameStop issue, the Secretary of Treasury is one of the world-renowned experts on markets, on the economy. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone she was paid to give her perspective and advice before she came into office.
So I just think that Jen Psaki has no idea. So all she here is going to do is defend Janet Yellen in terms of receiving those speaking fees. But in terms of Janet Yellen, should she recuse herself around advice to Joe Biden when it comes to this issue because she got these speaking fees from Citadel? I think obviously she should recuse herself, but Jen Psaki, I just don't think has any idea. Obviously, she would have had to been briefed on a lot of this, and a lot of these questions, I think they just didn't see coming. So not to protect her, but I really don't think she knows. Now, with that said, I think it's very possible that the White House stepped in here and said something. But of course, we don't know. Still speculation. I want to be clear on that. And one of the fallouts from all this is that there's a class action lawsuit now filed against stock app Robinhood for restricting trading. So with a class action lawsuit like this coming out, I imagine at some point we will learn whether or not they were pressured to limit these trades. Now, whether they did or not, ultimately, what matters is that they actually did limit the trades, meaning that they did manipulate the market. So whether there's someone else to blame in addition to Robinhood, we'll have to find out. But at the very least, Robinhood and other trading apps that limited these trades to benefit billionaire hedge fund managers who were short selling, clearly this is market manipulation. Okay. Let me prep the next story. So yeah, as I said, we have no idea. We have no idea. Some stories like this, it's really easy to just buy into it and just say, oh, the White House definitely pressured. But I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. And it would make more sense for places like Sequoia to pressure and other billionaire hedge funds to pressure Robinhood as opposed to the White House. But with that said, we really don't have the full story yet. All right, going to pause there. I'm going to prep the next story really briefly, which means I'll be going to a short little slate here, but I'll be right back as I prep the next story. All right, I'm back. I want to thank Fanders for their super chat. Thank you very much. Now, this next story is going to be on Joe Biden. The New York Times editorial board is unhappy with how much Joe Biden is accomplishing. Yes. They are now complaining that he is pushing forward too many executive orders. Let me show you the headline here from The Hill. New York Times editorial board pushes back on Biden's use of executive actions, asks him to ease up. Now, let me first show you, as they write themselves in the New York Times, how much Joe Biden has gotten done so far through executive action. So they write here, a week into his presidency, Mr. Biden has issued a raft of executive orders and other actions. Already, he has committed to rejoining the Paris Climate Change Agreement, ended the Muslim travel ban, canceled the permit for the Keystone XL pipeline, rescinded funding for and halted construction on the wall at the southern border, reaffirmed the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, DACA, mandated mask wearing on federal grounds, moved to end the federal government's reliance on private prisons, reversed the ban on transgender military service, and called for agency assessments aimed at advancing racial equity, just to name a few. The coming days will bring more such action. Now, imagine complaining about this. This is the issue with a lot of this mainstream commentary when it comes to politics. They like to look at these issues as trying to be neutral. They look at both sides when it comes to the parties, as opposed to looking at the facts objectively, looking at policy objectively, looking at who this hurts or helps. So they treat politics more like a sport or a game, as opposed to treating it like real life, which it is. So instead of saying, oh, this is all great stuff, instead they are criticizing that, oh, now Republicans are pushing back on this. Here, let me read what they follow up with this, what they follow up saying. These moves are being met with cheers by Democrats and others eager to see the legacy of Donald Trump's presidency dismantled post-haste. Republicans, meanwhile, are grumbling about the presidential overreach and accusing Mr. Biden of betraying his pledge to seek unity. This is ridiculous. Again, showing you how they present the information here. That one side says this, one side says this. One side is happy, the other side is angry. How about looking at what he did? Are these good things for people? You in the media are supposed to be representing the best interests of people and advancing that, but instead they're looking at this like a sport. Oh, one side is really angry, one side is happy. What they should be doing is working together to pass legislation. Yeah, that would be great in a perfect world where Republicans weren't fascists and insurrectionists, but in this world, it's a little hard to pass legislation when one party is completely batshit insane. So the only course of action Biden has right now is executive action. If Republicans were actually willing to work to solve issues when it came to the pandemic, when it came to healthcare, when it came to climate change, then great. Democrats should work with them. But they are not willing to work with Democrats when it comes to science, when it comes to what actually needs to be done. So the only course of action then is to push through these executive actions while you're waiting for some legislation to be able to be pushed through, at least through, I mean, at this point, it's going to have to go through budget reconciliation, which takes 51 votes, or they're going to have to get rid of the filibuster. But regardless, there is no way Democrats are going to pass anything substantial with 60 votes. It's going to be anything passed with 60 votes will have to be watered down to something that is completely okay with Wall Street, corporate interests, and definitely not enough when it comes to helping people in this serious time of need. Now, I also want to show you how popular Biden's initial batch of executive orders are, as 538 writes here. So they have a table here, and just let's go through them. Prohibiting workplace discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. So 83% support. Committing to a government-wide focus on racial equity, 77%. Requiring masks on federal property, 75%. And so far, all of these also have a majority of GOP support as well. Continuing suspension of federal student loan repayments, 68. Continuing a ban on evictions, 66. Restarting DACA program, 65. Rejoining the World Health Organization, 62. Recommitting to the Paris Climate Agreement, 61. Reexamining Trump policies on public health and the environment, 57. Allowing non-citizens to be counted in the U.S. Census, 56. Ending new wall construction at the U.S.-Mexico border, 53. Ending the ban on travel to the U.S. from some primarily Muslim/African nations, 52. Enacting a moratorium on drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, 49. And revoking the permit for the Keystone Pipeline, 43. This is bipartisanship. When you have the majority of people backing these executive actions, what more do you want? This is unity. This is what unity looks like. It's not the fault of Democratic leaders or anybody else that Republicans in Washington are completely insane. Just because lawmakers are crazy doesn't mean you need to work with them. I mean, that is why you should not be working with them, is because they are crazy. You have to look at what people actually want, what they actually need. And when you look at that, the people are on the side of what Joe Biden is doing. All right. Let me grab some super chats here. Andrew Redot. I'm not going to get any of your last names. Redosky, maybe that's what it is. Says, did you see that Biden approved 31 new drilling projects on federal lands and coastal waters? No, I did not. I'll have to look into that later. Adam Bryceland says Dems are going to get destroyed in 2022 like they did back in 94 and 2010. If they don't give us those checks or do something, they're going to lose. Absolutely. Yeah, as happy as I am with Biden's executive orders here, there's obvious limitations on executive orders. Like, for example, he passed a $15 minimum wage for federal workers because that's all that he can do with the power that he has. He can't pass a minimum wage bill that impacts everybody. That has to be done through legislation. So there are serious limitations to executive orders. That is a fair criticism. But yeah, they have to get real stuff done. And the issue is going to be that Republicans know that. Republicans know that Democrats have to get something done, or that they're going to get, or that Democrats will be destroyed in 2022. So what's going to happen, of course, is that Republicans are going to obstruct. They're going to try and block anything substantial from getting through in the effort to hurt Democrats in 2 years. So it's important to look at these issues with a level head and look at the politics with a level head, that there is plenty of blame to go around here. This is why when it comes to presenting legislation, you have to go way further left than you actually want, which is why I criticized the minimum wage bill, even though people were saying, well, you have to do it through a transition. You can't have it done immediately. I don't care what you think is possible or not possible. When you are negotiating, you have to come to the table with a position that is even further left than what you want. Come to the table with $20 an hour. Come to the table with $18 an hour by the summer. Do something where if you are forced to compromise, then you are forced to compromise to a position that is closer to your own position. But Democrats don't do that. And on the other end of that, you have Republicans that are going to fight Democrats on everything, regardless of how conservative the bill in front of them is. So this is going to be an ongoing issue, which is why right now Biden is basically limited to what he can do through executive action until they can either deal with the filibuster or go through budget reconciliation to get anything passed with 51 votes. And even still, even with that, you have to worry about Joe Manchin. You have to worry about Kyrsten Sinema and others who want to play this game of pretending to be or not pretending to be, but being more conservative to stop piece of legislation and, filling the role that they see for themselves as being the moderate. So that's also going to be an ongoing issue. It's a problem when you only have a simple majority with the VP being the tiebreaker. So that's going to be an ongoing problem over the next 2 years at least. I read that already. Sunil Matwani says, do you believe the fracturing in the Republican Party is here to stay, or will they fall in line once again as time goes on? The fracturing in the Republican Party is here to stay. I'll be the first to admit I have no idea where that party is going. You have now Donald Trump threatening to start his own party, the Patriot Party, or I guess he floated that idea. really as a way to get Republicans in line with him, so he can still be the kingmaker, basically, because the base is still with Donald Trump. The majority of Republicans still think Trump won the election. We're talking about almost half the country that is just completely living in a different world mentally. So this is it's hard to predict with with a base like that where the party's going to go. My assumption would be that anybody that is kissing up to Trump is going to benefit in 4 years. People like Ted Cruz, people like Josh Hawley. I think the party will likely go in their direction with somebody who is, just as dangerous as Trump, but maybe a little more competent in being able to get things done. So that's a worry I have. But if Trump does manage to start his own party and actually wants to put the work in to do that, then he would definitely end up splitting the GOP. And that would only benefit Democrats. But I don't see Trump actually starting a new party. I think that's just something he floated as a way to try and scare lawmakers into continuing to kiss his ring. So I have no idea where the party's really going to go, but there are multiple ways it can go depending on what happens over the next 2 years. This is not letting me scroll down. Adrian Thomas, I want to see if you have a super chat, but it's not letting me scroll down here. I'll go to the other chat. Adrian Thomas says, just want to let you know I just got a new 65-inch 4K TV and your hair looks even more luscious than it did before. Luscious. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It's funny, I don't broadcast in 4K. I broadcast in 1080p, but I guess maybe it upped the res and you can see even more detail. Well, thank you. I don't know why I can't scroll down. Okay, hopefully this is fixed later. But if there are any more super chats, I'll get to them after the next story. Let me prep it. So I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Not much prep with this one. It is a clip, but you'll see. Princeton University professor Eddie Glaude was on MSNBC and perfectly summed up the fatal flaw of bipartisanship in today's political discourse. Check this out.
Look, it is one thing to call for bipartisanship. It makes sense to me on a certain level. But bipartisanship, just as agreement and disagreement, must presume a set of background conditions that allow us to disagree. In other words, what I mean by this, if you have some among us who are willing to throw democracy into the trash bin in the name of a view that this country must remain white, it must remain in the hands of a particular segment of the population, and they're willing to throw democracy away in the name of that, there is no ground to have bipartisan relationships with them. There's no basis to compromise with them, because if you do, you become complicit in undermining the very foundations of American democracy. So we got to get clear on those folk who agree to the background conditions for us doing work in this country. That is, they agree to the basic principles of democratic life in this country. And we know that a whole bunch of folk, not only do they not agree with the facts, Nicole, they don't agree with the very principles of democracy themselves. That's the key. They are not Democrats, small d. They don't believe in who we are as a country. And we need to understand that. And I'm talking directly to Tucker Carlson. I'm talking directly to Sean Kennedy. I'm talking directly to Mitch McConnell. I'm talking directly to Kevin McCarthy. I'm talking directly to all of these folk who are willing to throw this country away. Just as those folk in the South were willing to rebel and killed over 600,000 people because they didn't believe in it. That's what we have to do, Nicole. That's the ground for us to begin to do the work to salvage this place and imagine it otherwise. I know that was a bit emotional, but I guess that's what I do.
Now, there are a few people on MSNBC that I think are worth listening to, that are actually allowed on the network. One of them is Ali Velshi, the other is Anand Giadartis, and the other is Eddie Glaude. Eddie Glaude here is spot on. And it's so important to have voices like this in mainstream media discussing this fatal flaw in the idea of bipartisanship, because there is no unity with insurrectionists. There is no unity with white nationalists. There's no unity with the Boogaloo Boys. Because if you do try and unite with them, it won't be them compromising their values. It would be us compromising ours. So it's important to understand you can't compromise with people who want to see a very different country than the one that we want to see. We want to see a country with equality. We want to see people have equal rights. They don't. So there is no uniting. There is no bipartisanship with people like that. And that includes lawmakers that back those individuals, that listen to that kind of base. People like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and basically the entire party, though a lot more quietly. But there is no uniting with lawmakers like that. At the same time, it is also still important to reach out to people who could be taken in by their bullshit. So it's very important to be able to separate the actual groups like the Boogaloo movement. It's important to separate people that are a member of that movement from the individuals who may be fooled into thinking that movement represents their interests. So it is still very important to reach out to a wide range of people, and that isn't just through, media, but it's through unionizing, organizing. It's through discussions with people on the ground and understanding what their needs are and being able to serve those needs and showing that you can help them in whatever struggle that they're facing. So this is the kind of thing where it requires a lot of work. It's really easy to be reactionary. It's really easy to fall into the idea that, everyone in power is against me. They're all bad. Let's just take it all down. It's really easy to fall into that bullshit. It's a lot tougher to actually do the work and improve society. So that involves organizing, unionizing, and being able to talk to people who normally may not agree with you or may not be educated on these issues, but it requires educating those people, getting involved, and ensuring that they are part of the discussion. All right, Eddie Glaude, fantastic. Always. Sometimes I'm amazed that some of the people that are still allowed on these networks. Really good to hear that voice on there. All right. YouTube is not really fixing itself here, but let me... I can still see the chats. I just have to go and scroll through the chat to find it. Jenny Emery. Yes, Jenny Emery says, did you see the clip Brian Williams played last night about McCarthy and Trump? Epic, hilarious. You know what? Let me look this up. I saw somebody tweet about it. I couldn't imagine anything that Brian Williams did was worth watching, but so I never actually watched it. But let me see. If I can find it quickly. I'm not sure if this is it, but this is what I saw somebody post. So, oh wait, I can't post this. Never mind. He shows a clip from Jerry Maguire. I'm not sure if this is the clip you're talking about, but I can't post this because Jerry Maguire. You can't play movies on YouTube. So I'll have to look later for whatever clip you're talking about, unless somebody can somehow link it to me, but I know YouTube doesn't really allow that. But I'll try to find it later. All right. Let me prep this next video, so I will be right back. All right, I'm back. I just heard a super chat coming. I'll grab that after this story. This story is, I don't know. It's something. That's for sure. Dr. Fauci broke his silence on what he thought when Trump brought the idea of using disinfectant to treat COVID-19 in the body. So if you remember, I'm going to play a clip. Early into the pandemic, Trump floated the idea that you could use disinfectant. Let me quickly play this clip, and I'll show you what Dr. Fauci is now saying about this.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see. But the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful.
All right. Just in case you forgot who was president a year ago, this shit's crazy. It's still crazy. Now, at the time, Fauci, of course, did not sign on to what Trump was saying, but had to be very cautious about how he said things because he was under Donald Trump. And now he's a little more unchained. And this is one of the benefits. Look, many criticism of Biden, of course, but one of the benefits of having an administration that just is not completely batshit insane is that you have scientists actually able to speak their mind when it comes to the pandemic. So listen to Fauci here, giving his thoughts.
So let me ask you, you've spoken out now, I know, Dr. Fauci, about some of your frustrations about President Trump, receiving information that you say was based on no data. We all remember, infamously when people said, where are you getting your numbers? And he said, here in my head and gestured his head. I remember talking to Dr. Scott Atlas on this show, and he was talking about how, no issue with people not wearing masks at crowded rallies. Obviously, he had promoted the controversial idea of herd immunity to the president, and herd immunity not via a vaccine, right, via transmission. Then there was the doctor with the false claims about hydroxychloroquine, the MyPillow founder talking about an unproven plant extract as a cure for coronavirus. The president also talked about that. How bad was the misinformation that was being given to the president regularly?
Well, there was a combination of good information and bad information. Unfortunately, the concept of anecdotal as opposed to science-driven information seemed to prevail above that. I mean, I think if you look at the pushback that I got from people in the White House, including the president, about hydroxychloroquine, was one of the reasons why I felt it was essential for me to, not in a confrontative way, I took no great pleasure out of contradicting the president, but I had to get up just to maintain my own integrity, but also to be standing up for science that the data did not show what they were claiming. I mean, anecdotes are okay to give you the spurring on to take a look at a scientific approach, but to be ruled by anecdote is folly.
Right, and that obviously is what happened. I mean, we heard it, right? There was the ingesting bleach. I mean, there's no anecdote on that. Obviously, that one was just
right.
That one was just beyond the pale. I mean, can I just ask you, when he said that, I mean, Dr. Birx obviously had the unfortunate, she was unfortunately there. What went through your mind when he said that?
I just said, oh my goodness gracious, I could just see what's going to happen. You're going to have people who hear that from the president and are going to start doing dangerous and foolish things, which is the reason why immediately those of us who were not there said, this is something you should not do. Be very explicit. The CDC came out, I think the next day, and put in one of their publications, do not do this. I got asked on a number of shows, certainly on CNN, and I said, absolutely, this is not what you want to do.
So you...
All right, so there you go. They all knew behind the scenes how crazy this stuff was, and this is one of the benefits of having a leader who, look, again, criticism when it comes to the actual policy and legislation, of course, completely fair. We all know Biden does not go far enough, especially when it comes to healthcare. The idea that you still don't back a single-payer Medicare for all system during a pandemic is just completely nuts. But the cultural impact, the societal impact of just having somebody in charge who is not saying things that are completely crazy, it has a real-world impact. To show you, when it came to Trump discussing using disinfectant, after he did that, poison controls spiked. So this had an impact, and there were people that came out and said, we tried this because Trump said it. So this is why it is so important to just have somebody in charge who is listening to science on the base level. Now, yes, Biden is not listening to science when it comes to the healthcare system and what should be done about that. But when it comes to just pandemic response, there is a clear difference here. And having somebody in charge who is not just spouting complete nonsense that people actually listen to and think there's something to. I mean, on the other side of that, you have to ask yourself, who the hell is dumb enough or was dumb enough to listen to Trump and think that you can use bleach or any kind of disinfectant in your body to stop COVID-19? Like, who was so dumb to think that could actually help? But unfortunately, there are people out there that just blindly assume that if you're in charge, then you must know better. If you're leading the country, then you must be aware of the facts. You must actually know what's good, what's not, what helps, what doesn't. And people just listen without actually using their brains, and that happened there. And it shows you one of the main reasons why it is so important to have somebody in charge who is just not completely effing insane. Okay. Now, those are my main stories, but I got a bunch here that I just did not. I should almost start like a segment where it's like a rapid fire segment, just to going through like a bunch of stories that there isn't enough there to really do a whole video on, but I can touch on some of these things. Before I do that, let me just check super chat. I know one was sent in. I got to open a different tab here. YouTube is just not the most reliable thing to use. It's cutting off your questions, so I have to open a different page. All right, here we go. Terry Mondin says, "Hi, David. Love your content. How is baby David?" Thanks, Terry. Baby David is doing very well. He's sometimes the reason that I'm late to these live streams, or as I pretend that's the reason. One of the side benefits of having a child is you can now always say, "Oh, I was late. Sorry, I was late. You know, kids. What are you gonna do?" So I'm using him as an excuse sometimes. But no, he's doing fantastic. So thank you for asking. Fatherhood is definitely something I did not expect to ever be in. If you asked me a year ago, I'd never had any intentions of being a father. And then COVID-19 honestly kind of changed that. And I discussed this before, but we made the decision when COVID hit and then Bernie dropped out of the race, and we thought, you know what, we got to put some good people back into the world. There are a lot of shitty people having kids. How about we put a good one in? And that's why we decided to raise somebody who hopefully will turn out to be a good person. I guess we'll have to see about that in 18 years, but let's hope the work pays off. All right. I think I heard another chat come in. Let me refresh here. And then I'll go over a bunch of stories that I did not put together a whole segment on, but stuff worth discussing. Gina McGrath says, "Do you think people like Dr. Fauci and Birx deserve a little blame for not criticizing Trump more as their duty as public health officials?" Yes and no. So this is the dilemma that they were in, which in this case, I'm sympathetic to. I'm not sympathetic to it when it comes to other positions, but I am sympathetic to it in this case. That if they spoke out too much, then they'd be out of a job. And then who would Trump put in that case? Like, is Trump going to replace Dr. Fauci with Dr. Nick from The Simpsons? Like, that's what you got to worry about. So I understand why they walked on eggshells while they were working under Trump. But I also understand people being critical of them not speaking out enough. But you have to understand that the dilemma that they were in. And, you know, I just don't. You can't trust Trump to ever replace them with anybody that was that would have been better at the job, let's say. But when it comes to like his cabinet, no credit at all to those people. They could have come together and did 25th Amendment and got him out because he was crazy, and they didn't do that. Instead, they decided to resign in the last week, like they had some standards or morals or values, and just completely empty. They had the ability to actually remove him, and they didn't. But Fauci didn't have that power. All right. Well, let me grab some stories here. My other more chats coming in. I got to keep doing refreshes here because this is... You screwed me again, YouTube. Here we go. More has come in. Christopher Antonio says, should the U.S. give Latin American countries reparations for undermining their democracies and ruining the lives of millions? That's why so many Latinos are going to the U.S. Blessings to your family. You know what? I haven't thought about that. I think something should be done. But that's one I need to see arguments for and against. But the argument is fair. The U.S. has decimated Latin America, so absolutely. I think it's at least worthy of a discussion. Terry Mondin says for baby David, a couple of hearts and some party faces. Thank you so much, Terry. Kyle Maines, thank you for your super chat. I'm hearing more come in. A lot of support coming in. Thank you. Let me grab some chats here. Some stories. So, let's see. So this story came out earlier this week. At this point, I feel like it's kind of late for me to cover this, but it is worth discussing. I'll show you in a minute. There's a few links here I saved. So, here we go. Biden to order DOJ to end private prison contracts as part of racial equity push. Great step in the right direction. At the same time, also be aware that this did not go far enough. This is merely reinstating the Obama-era executive order and does not apply to private prisons that contract on behalf of ICE. Biden's campaign website made it seem otherwise. So basically, a lot of what Joe Biden is doing right now, and this is the ultimate fair criticism here, is that he's simply bringing the country back to the baseline of where Obama was before Trump came in, reversing a lot of what Trump did, which is great. A lot of that does have to be reversed, but you have to also go further. Now, when it comes to the pandemic, he has a lot of executive orders in relation to that, so those are obviously, different than what Obama did because there was no pandemic back then. But in terms of everything else, it is largely just going back to a baseline of where the country was before Trump. There has to be a bigger push here. And it's funny because, as I covered earlier, on the other end of that, you have the New York Times editorial board pushing back against Biden doing all these executive orders. So, my argument is he hasn't done enough. Their argument is he's doing too much. But clearly, this is at least in the right direction, but he has to keep going. And also, as Emma Vigeland tweeted out here, this is good, but far from good enough. Biden's executive order does not end ICE's contracts with private prisons, which is where much of the grotesque abuse of migrants has taken place. Absolutely. Let me grab another story here that did not do a story on, but I found interesting. So on an internal call, John Ossoff is arguing for being bold in delivering immediate material results for Americans as promised during the campaign, maintaining that's how Dems won Senate, these two sources say. So there was a lot of questions around John Ossoff specifically when it came to what his positions actually were, because he's always seemed like a bit of a Washington creation, unlike Raphael Warnock, who, is a pastor, has a record of actually saying some radical in a good way things. John Ossoff, though, much more, suit and tie kind of guy. But here, privately, apparently he has been pushing for Democrats to do more, to be bolder, and is saying that is the reason they won. For example, fighting for those $2,000 checks. He knows that is a big part of the reason that he won that race, because Joe Biden they came out saying that if we win, you will get a $2,000 check. I mean, you couldn't, you really can't have a more clear statement than that when it comes to a campaign. It is one of the things that it should be obvious now for a lot of these lawmakers that you actually have to tie your campaign to specific policy issues. You can't just say, hey, we're going to improve healthcare. We're going to raise wages. No. What specifically are you fighting for? Are you fighting for $15 minimum wage? Are you fighting for $2,000 checks? Are you fighting for Medicare for all? What specifically are you fighting for? And when you actually promise to fight for people and promise to deliver them cash, I mean, it's kind of it's almost in any other time it would be illegal, but because it's during the pandemic, it made total sense in the context that it was in. But guaranteeing $2,000 checks if they won, and now they should be pushing these checks out there. Where are the checks? So, of course, immediately, once Biden came in, he was talking about, $1,400. I get it. The math, when you add 600 that was already pushed through, plus the 1,400, you get the 2,000. But that is not what was promised. What was promised was $2,000 checks. And anybody trying to defend the 1,400, why? Why defend it? Why not fight for more? Is 2,000 even enough? No. So why would you simply say, but they always meant 1,400? No. You always have to fight for what people actually need. People should be getting $2,000 retroactive monthly to the beginning of the pandemic. So a one-time check of $2,000 and it isn't enough, let alone $1,400. So it's good to see that John Ossoff is actually fighting behind the scenes here to push some of this stuff through. But we're going to have to see how that fight continues. Also here, actually, maybe I should grab some chats before going to some more potential stories. Let me see. Kyle Maines, I think I mentioned you. Thank you for your super chat. Tex Stan said, congratulations on the new baby. Things get significantly easier once they can wipe their own butt. Before I go on to the rest of your chat, this is something I've been saying to myself for a while. Look, I love babies. I like that he's a baby. He's very cute, very nice. But I'm looking forward to actually raising a person. I'm looking forward to when he can wipe his butt and I can talk to him. So absolutely, I'm glad that it gets easier. Apparently, though, I'm sure part of parenthood also gets tougher when they can talk back. But I rather that than having to wipe butts. So thank you for saying that. I'm going on to say I fully support bringing lots more Canadians into the world. Oh, well, thank you, Tex, and thank you for your very generous super chat. Kyle Maines, back again, saying, where do you stand on Sam Cedar versus Bree Joy Gray on Force the Vote? Man, why are we still talking about Force the Vote? This is like a month ago. Okay, where do I stand? I'm kind of in the middle somewhere. So, I mean, if you followed what I did one video on this, I think, and I've talked about it during live streams as well. But I always supported the strategy of Force the Vote. I never pretended, though, that it was going to... I should get off this. I never pretended that it was going to... that Force the Vote was going to, get you Medicare for all. And anybody lying to you, telling you that AOC and the squad stood in the way of Medicare for all, they're just lying. That's not true at all. The idea that the squad were the ones blocking Medicare for all, no. If the squad forced the votes, you would not have Medicare for all today. That's not how this works. 6 Congress people can't pass a bill. That's not how it works. So the only argument was, will it be able to change the conversation? Will the media latch onto it when the vote fails? Will the media latch onto it will it be something that people then, I guess, wake up to that, oh, Democrats aren't working for me. They don't support Medicare for all. That was really the argument, is would it be worth it? Would it be worth spending that political capital to force the vote just for the media discussion around Medicare for all and how some Democrats are going on the record to not back Medicare for all during a pandemic? Is that worth it? I said yes, but I'm also open to it not being worth it. So I feel like I'm the most fair person in the room here because like I can completely see both sides. While I did support the strategy, I'm also very open to the idea that I don't know how it would have impacted. I could be very wrong and it would not have benefited. But that's separate from really what I think the Bree and Sam Cedar conversation was about, which I watched like 30 minutes and honestly it felt like it was going in circles, so I just stopped watching it. I'm not sure if it went anywhere. But the argument there was more about Jimmy's impact on Force the Vote and how Sam wanted to, or once Sam realized that Force the Vote was really Jimmy's way to try and attack the squad, then that's why he no longer backed it. And I think that's also a fair argument. You can still say the strategy would have maybe been worth it, effective, but at the same time, if the person leading that strategy, their way to get the squad on board, to get AOC on board, is to call her a fraud, a sellout. Like, as I've discussed before in other streams, if you are trying to get someone to join you to do something, because the whole point of Force the Vote was to get the squad to listen to Force the Vote, the idea, and execute it. But if you try to get somebody, on board with your business venture, if in your pitch meeting, you tell them, F you, you're a sellout, you suck, I hate you, whatever. If you just attack them, is that person more or less likely to join your business venture? I would say less likely. So you have to understand the use of persuasive speech, which is funny because I think Jimmy does know this. He used this he used very different language when it came to talking about Donald Trump. When he was on Fox News discussing how Trump should pardon Julian Assange, he had a very different approach. He wasn't calling Trump a piece of shit, wasn't calling Trump a sellout. He was saying that, hey, Trump, you'll be very popular if you do this. Why wasn't Jimmy using that same argument when it came to AOC? Hey, AOC, you'll be very popular if you do this. That would have been a more convincing argument than using the idea to attack the people, the very people you want to join you. And he also, by the way, Jimmy also used the same strategy, the kinder strategy when it came to getting Trump to back $2,000 checks. And then he did a video later on saying that his strategy worked. So if he had an example of his kindness working before on a lawmaker, then why not use that same strategy again when it came to the squad? So this is why you have to start questioning motivations. Nobody can be surprised. Jimmy should not be surprised if people question his motivations when he has a very different approach to the squad than he does to Trump. I mean, it's clear as day when you watch those videos back to back. Watch when he's talking about trying to get Trump on board with something, and watch when he's trying to get the squad on board with something. It's night and day. So if people question that, you can't, even if they're wrong in questioning your motives, you can't be surprised by them questioning your motives. So that's really, I think, what the debate between Bree and Sam are about. I'm more interested in the strategy of it, but now it's like a month. This happened like 3 weeks ago. So there's nothing to talk about when it comes to Force the Vote anymore. But it is a lesson going into the future that if you want to get lawmakers on board with an idea, then don't go at it by attacking them with it. Go at it by being persuasive, by getting people on board, by getting union organizers on board, by getting people that they listen to on board with your idea. That would be a way to actually pressure to get it done. But I think it became clear that the other tactic of attacking them was not successful. Juana Brams, I'm sure I said your name wrong, says Puerto Rico has been dealing with debt since before Hurricane Maria. How much do you want to bet that the investors that lost money from GameStop get bailed out first? Government is with them, not us. Absolutely. You saw how quickly the rules changed when billionaire hedge fund managers began to lose billions. All of a sudden, oh yes, absolutely, changing the market or manipulating the market is perfectly fine when you are helping billionaires and hurting hurting everyday citizens. But when it comes to actually helping people, I covered this earlier in my video on that billionaire who's crying again about paying his fair tax or paying his fair share in taxes. This idea that, you really have billionaires who are so completely out of touch with reality, and it's just a few of them, yet they're the ones dictating society, dictating policy, and if they even lose a tiny bit, they have to, rip the roots out and completely change how the system operates. It's just, I think this week has been enlightening for a lot of people who aren't normally or who are normally apolitical. Seeing how the media reacted to this story initially, seeing how quickly the rules were changed to benefit billionaires, I think it woke a lot of people up to who's really in charge. And in case you didn't already know, it's not the everyday person. It's people at the top of society with tons of money influencing policy. And not just policy, influencing in general how wealth is moved around. Okay. Before I get more chats, let me see what other stories I potentially had here. All right, so this one I just saved. I actually never read into this. So I was going to maybe do a story on this. But a conservative group puts $700,000 behind Josh Hawley. So Josh Hawley is trying to run on this idea, or trying to operate on this idea that he is, a populist, just like Donald Trump. But just like Donald Trump, he's also rolled by big dollar backers. So this is somebody you got to watch out for in 4 years. Josh Hawley, very likely to run for president in 4 years. Guy's completely nuts. And at the same time, he has positions like supporting the $2,000 checks that make him seem like more of a guy who is, hey, he's working in our interests. But in reality, you have, giant groups putting a ton of money behind him. But I'll have to read more about this specifically. But of course, it's not shocking to hear that he's being bankrolled. Of course he is. Almost every single lawmaker, apart from the Justice Dems in the House and Bernie Sanders, are backed by big money. Let's see what else here. This. So, a little Canadian story for you. I just saw some new polling in Canada. Liberals hold 5-point advantage over the Conservatives. 1 in 5 would vote for New Democrats. So I'm actually a little encouraged seeing how high the NDP are right here at 20%. So in case you don't know, the NDP are the more, more working class, more union-backed party. Meanwhile, you got the Liberals and Conservatives, two neoliberal parties here. But and to be fair, you could also argue in many ways the NDP aren't all that, aren't too much different. But they are, at least in their intentions and rhetoric, different. But quickly look over some of this, if there's any more polling on this. Half of Canadians say that COVID-19 response is the top issue for their federal government to address right now. Healthcare places second, 38%, with the economy third, 29%. So one of the issues that have been big during this whole thing, because you think, if you're outside Canada, you think, oh, but you have a single-payer system. Isn't healthcare great? It is when the single-payer system actually touches that aspect of healthcare. But our single-payer system does not touch pharmacare, does not touch dental care, does not touch long-term care homes. So long-term care homes have been, just completely decimated through this pandemic. So many of the sick and death have been in private long-term care homes. So there's sort of a public-private mix in long-term care, but regardless, it isn't under the Canadian Health Act. So because it operates outside of that, there are no real federal standards that the same way that there is with the Canada Health Act and what that covers. So there is a bigger discussion now in Canada about should long-term care be folded into our system, our single-payer system, and I think absolutely it should. But that obviously is going to take a lot more political willpower and work to get done. But for the most part, yeah, Canadians still very divided on who they back. All right. And that's it for me. Let me grab some normie chats in case there are any more, or unless there are any more super chats. Also, as I'm refreshing this, if you're a gamer, I know this is a very quick shift in discussion, but Hitman 3, fantastic. So good. I beat that last night. Found some time in between changing diapers to beat Hitman 3. Fantastic game. Check it out. Maybe I will jump on stream on Twitch on Sunday night, play a little more Hitman. Really, really, really good. All right. Let me grab some chats. Let me grab some normie chats here. What's going on? People love the drama. A lot of Jimmy talk here, of course. Yeah, like up until now, I've been very hands-off. This is something that, because I myself have been critical of people who have gotten into sort of like left YouTube drama. It's usually so absurd. And a lot of what you could do is behind the scenes. You could try and text somebody. Like, most of us know each other. You could text, call, talk to these people. And I tried that, which is why I have broken my silence on a lot of this bullshit. Because at some point you realize the person's not going to change. And when you have a prominent YouTuber coming out, supposedly on the left, supposedly progressive, basically promoting the Boogaloo Boys, that's an issue. So in case you missed it, I did a video earlier this week on that. It was like a combination video on there was a story on AOC's life being threatened, and then I also discussed the Boogaloo Boy stuff. But Mike Figueredo, Humanist Report, has a fantastic video on this as well. And Matt Binder, if you want like just a straight up facts, what happened and where the facts are, check out Matt Binder, his breakdown of it. In fact, maybe I can quickly find it for you all, because he has a great investigative piece, also looking into who the guest on Jimmy's show was. Yeah, here it is. So check out Matt Binder's page. Just look up Matt Binder. You'll find it. This is a great video. A Boogaloo Boy investigation, Jimmy Dore edition. Great breakdown of... oh, sorry. I don't have it up. Here we go. Matt Binder. There you go. Check it out. Great video. Great breakdown. But, yeah, at some point you have to break your silence. Like, we have a responsibility to people. And it's also important to say, like, on the other end of that, yes, you have to engage people that don't agree with you on issues. Yes. But there is a way to do that where you are not promoting or propping up somebody or selling somebody's ideology on your show. Reaching out to people who are apolitical or who are not a member of the Boogaloo Boys, or who or even just privately reaching out to people. If you want to reach out to this person privately, go right ahead. But there's a difference when you have a person on your show and you're laughing and having a good time and you're not challenging them. That's a problem. You can't do that with these people who are so clearly using you to try and tap into a different audience. So, I mean, the same person he had on the show was on Alex Jones' show yesterday. And yeah, just it's important to reach out to people who don't agree with you. But when you have a platform, you have to be careful with how you use that platform. And it's really easy if he just came out and apologized. Just said, hey, I screwed up. I shouldn't have had that guy on, whatever. But Yeah, he's not gonna apologize. All right. Let me grab some chats. Miranda Writes Left says, one of two. David, yeah, you're still here. Haven't caught you live in forever. Congrats on becoming a dad. My oldest is 19, and I promise it gets better every year. Solid, nonstop, amazing, always. Don't listen to anyone who tells you differently. You have the only prerequisite needed to be a good father, being a really good man. Sending tons of love and well wishes to you and your new family from the U.S. Thank you so much, Miranda Writes. You have been a big supporter of mine for a while now. Thank you so much. I'm glad you caught a live stream again. And thank you for the advice. I'm glad to hear that it gets better every year. Real cool. Josh Duncan here, sending a message saying White House press secretary is a former Citadel employee. Really? Jen Psaki. Her brother is the lead portfolio manager. White House finance secretary received $800,000 from Citadel. Yeah, I discussed how Janet Yellen received speaking fees, $810,000 from Citadel. I did not know Jen Psaki's relationship with that. Let me just look this up. Let me see. So I don't want to, this is a person's comment. I don't know if this is true or not. So I'm looking up on the fly here. Is Jen Psaki related to Jeff Psaki? Okay, so it does seem, although Jen's relationship to Jeff could be perceived as a conflict of interest, there is virtually no evidence suggesting that the two of them are actually related. They do share a last name, but very little is known about Jeff, who is not a public figure. Jen has not disclosed any connection to the firm and has not faced any scrutiny from the press over possible ties yet. So appears to be a question mark on your comment. Not clear whether or not Jen Psaki has been involved or knows anybody that is with Citadel. But Janet Yellen did receive $800,000. So I'm sort of less concerned about the press secretary's role in all this. I don't think she's giving advice to Biden regardless. But still, yes, of course, it's important to mention potential ties and conflicts of interest when it comes to certain people giving advice if they have a conflict of interest. Philippe Vega says, hi, David. Love the show. You always have the tea before anyone else. Thank you, Philippe. All right. Did something else come in? A lot of chats now. Where were you all at the beginning of the show? Cat Purple saying, I agree with more of what that guy said than I do with Biden or Pelosi. He might be fake. Wait, which guy? I agree with more of what that guy said than I do with Biden or Pelosi. He might be fake about it, so AOC seems to be more talk than action at this point. Oh, he's definitely fake about it. You're talking about the Boogaloo Boy guy? Total fake. So, did I save these links? I should have saved these links. If I can find this. I may have saved these links. The Boogaloo Boys have discussed internally. So again, this is a movement, not necessarily a specific group, but it's a movement consisting of many right-wing groups. But they have discussed basically putting on a more progressive face as a way to tap into different audiences and get those people on board. So I think I did save the link. Here we go. Bring this up. So, hater of bad ideas here tweeting out, what if I told you that people lie? So this, I believe, is from a Discord or maybe from a private chat. Regardless, these have been going around. I think publicly throwing our support both verbally and on the streets behind anti-ICE people and BLM could produce a huge shift in public opinion, at least in the younger generations. So they, again, this is Boogaloo Boys. They understand how progressive younger generations are, and their idea to tap into that is to publicly present themselves as being pro-BLM, being anti-ICE, as a way to tap into these sorts of movements or groups. I don't want to protest with them, but to have a cause they sympathize with would help us gain support from people on that side of the spectrum. We want people's support, not the parties. If we were going to do that, we should be consulting leaders from their Twitter communities. That's how most movements other than ours get out there. And if we can get Black Twitter and LGBT Twitter, we could turn the tide of the soft war. I feel like the Civil War part should be removed. They are fully aware. This is about Boogaloo. So Boogaloo means Civil War. They understand their how they can be perceived as they are insurrectionists, white nationalists, and instead of simply embracing what they are instead using the idea of being progressive or pro-BLM or pro-LGBT or anti-ICE. They're using that as a way to tap into left-wing communities, and even going as far as to mention they understand, the leaders of these communities, people that have prominent followings. So I think it's pretty clear here what they've been doing, and it's, again, nothing is wrong with reaching out to apolitical people or people that may fall into this kind of trap. Reach out to those people with a real, economic message. Get them involved. That's obviously what we have to do. And when it comes to unionizing, organizing, that's a big piece of that. But that doesn't mean promoting somebody who is a prominent member of, which that guy is a prominent member of the Boogaloo Boys. That is not reaching out to those communities or reaching out to people who may be taken in by this is not the same as promoting somebody who is a member of a white nationalist far right movement. They're just not the same thing. So it's important to understand that. Losing my voice here. Okay. Let me grab some more chats. Teresa S. says, best thing we can do is reopen comedy clubs and get these folks back to work, doing what do best, or at least less political commentary. I don't know what that means. But the first part, reopen comedy clubs. I think now's the wrong time. Look, the end is near. You have the vaccines coming in. There have been open air, outside comedy events. So I think that's fine if it's your space, that you're physically distanced and all that, whatever. But comedy clubs are notoriously you're shoulder to shoulder with people. They're all packed in. I don't think now's the time to reopen comedy clubs. In 6 months, 8 months, a year, this stuff's going to be, most people will be vaccinated. This stuff will be in the past. I think now that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, now is not the time to jump the gun and get people more sick before they have the vaccine. So no, I got to disagree with you there on reopening comedy clubs. Sally Shaw says, have you shared a pic of your new baby? If not, why not? Just curious. And if so, share it again. Loved your reasons for having a baby. I'm pretty, what's the word? Private. I forgot the word private. I was gonna say personal. I'm very private. But no, if you go to my Instagram, there are a couple pics. But when it comes to his face and that kind of thing, it's his decision as he gets older whether or not he wants to be known on the internet. I don't think it really makes sense for me to preemptively. One second. It doesn't make sense for me to preemptively, put his face out there, even though, it's a baby. Most babies all look the same. So, however he looks now, he'll look different in 5 years. But still, I don't think it's my place to do that to him. He is his own person, or will be his own person. So he makes those decisions at some point. But with that said, yes, I have posted photos of me with him. So check the Instagram page. Terry Mondon says, thank you for addressing, and in case you're wondering, the Instagram page is just my Twitter handle. Same thing. Where was I? Terry Mondon says, thank you for addressing the Jimmy Dore controversy. He has been making me uncomfortable lately. I sadly had to unsubscribe. He is seeking more views. This is something that Mike Figueredo also watch his video. Watch Binder's video, then watch Mike Figueredo's video, The Humanist Report, that Mike gets into. He discusses how in 2017 he put a video out where he was attacking a right-wing conspiracy theory, and he got a lot of hate immediately in his chat and down likes on that video. And at that point, he realized, hey, am I attracting a certain audience that I don't want to attract? Because he, was going mostly after Democrats, which makes sense. There's a lot that Democrats do wrong. But if your coverage is not balanced, at least in some way, then you begin to attract a certain audience that basically is just a right-wing audience. And you're then incentivized to only attack Democrats or even the left when it comes to Jimmy. You're incentivized to do that because it helps your bottom line. It helps you get views, as opposed to just having, being objective when it comes to these issues. I would argue that having balanced coverage makes you a person that is more likely to change minds. So because I do videos criticizing Joe Biden and I do videos discussing how it's good that he rescinded the Keystone XL pipeline permit, because I have balanced coverage like that, showing you the good and bad of people, what it does is it allows me, I think what it does is it impacts people in a way where they know I'm being honest when I'm covering this stuff. They know I'm being objective because I'm not going to be completely blind to any positive things Biden has done. I'm going to acknowledge the positive and the negative. So when I say the negative means more. Because if I'm just doing negative, then who am I convincing? All you're talking to at that point is an audience that already agrees with you. I'm trying to get in an audience that I want to change minds, right? Like the whole point of this, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to educate people. If all I want to do is talk to an audience that agrees with me all the time on everything, then like, what's the point? What's the point of any of this? The reason I do this is I hope that some of these videos get out there, make it to somebody that is either apolitical, or maybe they watch CNN or MSNBC, and they see a video of mine where I'm saying, hey, Biden did a good job rescinding the Keystone XL pipeline, and look at Trudeau, and Trudeau being against that. They see that video and think, oh, look, I'm going to follow this guy. I like his content. And then they see a video I do where I'm criticizing Joe Biden. That video criticizing Biden now is going to mean more because they saw the video where I was giving him credit for canceling something that he should be canceling. So you have to understand the impact of what you're saying and really what your goal is. Is your goal to just make money and be popular, or is your goal to actually benefit society in some way, to educate people? My goal has always been to educate people. So that's what I try to do. And I'm very conscious of how I communicate a lot of these stories because it is important to represent the facts as they are, represent objective reality, and then also, give my opinions on that objective reality. But it's important to be objective to these issues because if you're just ignoring, all the crap that Republicans or Trump did, then you're only really giving one side of the story. Like it's important to, I think, represent all sides as much as you can. So anyways, I'm all over the place, but those are my thoughts. Adrian Crook, thank you for your super sticker. Much appreciated. All right. My throat is gone. I don't think I realize how much I talk during the week until Fridays, where my throat gets so dry because I've spent all week shooting videos. Yeah. Because for the most part, I'm not a social person, especially during COVID. But I definitely talk a lot just for this job. Moist, thank you for your super chat. Yankee Doodle says, how is Hitman enjoyable to you? How is it enjoyable to me? Because it's very fun. It's hard to explain. The story in Hitman 3 is solid. I got to say that, more than the first two. I did not expect the story to be really good. It's fantastic. But I've just always enjoyed the Hitman games. They're like kind of these sandbox environments, and you have a lot of freedom in how you approach every scenario. So I enjoy it. All right. Oh, there's more coming in. You guys, with all the support, thank you. Red Zoso says, "Hey David, how's your Facebook page doing?" It is doing better. So check me out on Facebook if you're on Facebook. I'm not a big fan of Facebook, but having a Facebook page because I want to educate people, it's important to do that. So you reach out to a certain audience that is not on YouTube. The Facebook audience skews much older, much more moderate or conservative. So having a Facebook page out there, even though it's nowhere near the popularity of the YouTube page, I think it's important to continue growing that page, as I am reaching a very different audience there. And you notice it as well in the views. Like, there are certain videos, like usually Trump videos, for whatever reason. Thankfully, I'm done doing Trump for the most part. But Trump videos do very well on Facebook because that's kind of where the audience is, the moderate audience, and they don't do as well on YouTube. But it's important to always be able to, as I discussed earlier, represent what is going on in society, in politics, and not just stick to covering one party. All right. Probably going to have to get out of here before my voice completely goes. But I will grab all the super chats that come in. Nathan Mateer, thank you for your super sticker. Let me grab some rando chats, some normie chats. COVID turned me into an introvert, says Thomas. Yeah, that definitely has an impact on people. I think like if you already were an introvert, or you already suffer from like some kind of social anxiety, which I have in the past, basically being forced to stay home all the time, not good for your mental health for sure. So looking forward to when everybody is vaccinated. All right. All right. I think we're good. So once again, thank you all for showing up. I'll do one last refresh. I don't like missing people that send super chats in, so one last refresh here. And we are good. If there's a minute delay on the stream, so if you send a late one in, I'm sorry. But I will have missed you. Oh, are more coming in now? Hold up. 2 more came in. All right. This is the last refresh. Snow White says, "I'm so glad I caught you live today. I love your show." Thank you, Snow White. And True Critique says, 2021 Canadian federal election thoughts. I think I don't know. I'm confident Trudeau is going to maintain a minority. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. O'Toole is not liked at all. He's the most hated party leader right now. Jagmeet Singh, I just don't think has done enough. And the NDP, not in terms of, like, they have pushed a lot during this pandemic. They have pushed the Liberals to good positions during the pandemic, but enough in order to be able to win an election, to form a government. I think it's going to be a continued years-long project for the NDP to really make any real gains here. So I don't think it's their time yet. And because of that, I ultimately think it's basically going to be Trudeau maintaining a minority. All right. But again, many things can change. A lot of time. All right. My voice is definitely gone now. Thank you all for showing up, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.